Imagine a man with enough strength to tear a lion apart who lost everything because of a secret kept in 7 braids of hair. This is the story of Samson, a hero whose greatest battle was fought within his own heart. An angel appeared to a couple who thought they would never have children, promising them a son with a divine destiny. This child was to be a Nazarite, set apart for God, and his hair was never to be cut. The boy was named Samson, and as he grew, it became clear that the Spirit of the Lord was moving through him in extraordinary ways. He was born to be a deliverer, destined to rescue his people from the Philistines. One day, while walking through the vineyards of Timnah, a young lion charged at Samson with a terrifying roar. Without a single weapon in his hand, the Spirit of the Lord gave him a surge of supernatural power. Samson overpowered the beast and ripped it apart as easily as if it were a small goat. This feat of strength remained a secret, known only to him and the God who empowered him. At a wedding feast, Samson used his encounter with the lion to challenge his enemies with a clever and cryptic riddle. He bet 30 linen garments that they could not solve the mystery of the honey in the carcass. But the Philistines played dirty, threatening Samson's bride until she finally nagged him into revealing the secret. After she betrayed his trust, the guests answered the riddle, and Samson's fury began to boil over. What happens when a man with the power of an army is pushed too far by betrayal? Samson sought revenge by unleashing 300 foxes with lit torches into the Philistine grain fields and olive groves. The fire consumed everything, leaving the Philistine economy in ruins and sparking a cycle of violence that would lead to a legendary showdown. Samson retreated to a cave, waiting for the next move from his enemies. When 3,000 men of Judah came to hand him over to the Philistines, Samson allowed them to bind him with new ropes. But the moment his enemies approached, the Spirit of God surged through his muscles. The thick ropes snapped like charred flax, and Samson reached down to grab the only weapon he could find, a fresh jawbone of a donkey. With that single bone, he struck down 1,000 Philistine warriors in one afternoon. Exhausted and parched after the battle, Samson cried out to God for water, fearing he would die of thirst. God opened a hollow place in the ground, and a spring gushed forth to revive the champion's strength. Years later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, unaware that she had been bribed by the Philistine lords. They offered her a fortune to find the secret source of his incredible, world-shaking power. 3 times she tried to trap him, and 3 times he lied to her, breaking through every bond she used. But the relentless pressure of her nagging eventually wore down his spirit and his resolve. Samson finally told her the truth. If his hair were shaved, his vow to God would be broken, and his strength would depart. While he slept, Delilah called for a man to cut his hair, and the Spirit of the Lord left him. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and threw him into a prison to grind grain like an animal. They didn't notice that as his days in the dark passed, his hair slowly began to grow back. During a great festival, the Philistines brought Samson out to mock him in their temple, placing him between 2 massive pillars. Samson reached out his hands and whispered a final desperate prayer for strength. With one final push, he brought the entire structure crashing down, defeating more enemies in his death than he had in his life. He gave his life to fulfill the destiny God had whispered to his parents long ago. Samson's life reminds us that true strength is a gift from God, but it requires a heart that is fully committed. Even in our greatest failures, God hears the prayers of the broken and can bring victory out of ruin. The story of the strongest man who ever lived teaches us that mercy is always available to those who return to God. He is faithful even when we are weak, and His purposes will always prevail in the end.